Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third and perhaps final Stewardship Financial Zoom meeting. Our plan for today is to share a perspective about the meaning of St. Andrews and the meaning of pledging, and also our current financial picture as well as an outlook for 2021. Following that, we'll have an opportunity for a question and answer session. But before we go any further, I want to acknowledge and thank our Stewardship Committee. Helen Bosley, Paul Catone, Angela Grady, Jill Ray, Jennifer Richardson, Megan Sutker, Allison Youngblood, Christy Brown, and Gary Sloan. These folks have rolled up their sleeves, written our appeal letters, developed a pledge form, handled the mailing, developed a kickoff announcement, and organized these Zoom meetings as well as the car caravan for collecting our pledges. I want to especially recognize Allison, Christy, and Gary for their work all summer long in developing our approach for this year's campaign. I also want to thank our parish administrator, John Bacanfuso, for his help in developing our mailing list, printing materials for the mailings, and his general advice on a number of issues. As I'm sure you'll recognize, these are challenging times for our country, the world, our local community, and for St. Andrews. In a few minutes, you'll hear about some challenges facing our parish. But first, I want to turn things over to Gary Sloan for a perspective on St. Andrews and stewardship there. But before we do that, we have two folks who've added. Joanne, good morning. Joanne, can you speak up, please? Let us know that you're there. I just want to let Allison and Joanne know that since they've joined here after my introduction, we are recording this meeting so that it can be put on the St. Andrews website or some other social media platform. And unless I hear otherwise, we're going forward with recording. That said, I turn it over to Gary now. Gary, you're muted, my friend.
Am I co-hosting, Jim?
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes.
I have another video to show. Kathy, we shared your testimonial last night, and I'll be working with Denise once everybody in the vestry sends me their testimonials to organize some sort of presentation for the parish as a whole, either available on the website or Sunday service. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with them, but we are using them for these meetings. And I think I will play Denise's this morning, but just preface by saying that all of us have been thinking at this time about our own particular personal testimonial as to why we give to St. Andrews, how much we give, how we come to those decisions. I was just upstairs this morning clearing some mail from the table, and as I started to open them from medical assistance programs and appeals from the Native American College Fund and the AFL-CIO, and there's so many organizations requesting, and it will just increase, especially during this time, how we make the particular decision about St. Andrews is so interesting and crucial. And we all have those decisions to make. And this, let me share what Denise said. See her?
Yes. is the most important thing in the world to marry.
Hi. You caught me watching Sunday service online. St. Andrew's Church in Yardley, Pennsylvania. We are in the middle of our stewardship campaign at the moment. And I'd like to encourage you to think about our church, to think about giving to our church. Our church is special for so many reasons. Not just because we have an amazing rector, Hillary Greer, who gives extremely profound sermons every Sunday and really makes you think about your faith. And where is God showing up for you during this time? Our incredible ministries, Caring for Friends, Interfaith Food Alliance, Pendel Food Pantry. There are many ways you can get involved. Whether it's a performance being directed by our own Gary Sloan, It's a Wonderful Life radio show, or Lectio Divina by our own Carolyn Lyday, Megan Sutker, who facilitates holding space, and Bob Anderson, who does poetry readings every Friday. We're online. We are open. Everyone in our parish is welcoming. 20 years ago, my husband and I joined St. Andrew's. And the moment we stepped foot, we felt like we belonged. St. Andrew's, it's a place where you believe, where you belong, and where you will feel beloved. So this stewardship season, I encourage you to donate to St. Andrew's, to see what our amazing church has to offer, to join us online for Sunday service. We welcome you.
Very nice.
Thank you,
Wow.
Denise. We all have a story, and we all have the question. Where does St. Andrews fit in that pile of requests that we have from worthy causes? So let's answer it together as the weeks go by.
Okay. Again, thank you, Gary, and we'll send thanks out to Denise. Looks like we lost Joanne in the process here. But anyway, time to turn the discussion over to our accounting warden, Jerry Yarnell, who will talk to us about where we stand today and our outlook for next year. Jerry?
Thanks, Jim. So this is the part of the program that we call reality. As Jim mentioned, it's been a challenging year for all of us in so very many ways. And really, the St. Andrews community has stepped up in just remarkable ways. As people have mentioned before, we have developed a really vibrant online community. The Caring for Friends ministry has grown by leaps and bounds, doubling and tripling the number of meals that we've been providing for shut-ins around the Philadelphia area. And in the first half of the year, we were really weathering the financial challenges quite well. The third quarter, however, has brought us some financial challenges in addition to all of the other challenges that we face. As many of you know, the nursery school is closing. That means we will not be getting rent from them. We're going to be missing $8,000 worth of rent this fall and $16,000 next year, which is what they normally paid a year. In addition, the investment income from our investment portfolio is down because of market conditions, interest rates have fallen quite low. Our investment balance at Vanguard last September 2019, earned us $1,200 in interest for that month alone. In the past month, September 2020, our interest income on that very same balance is down to $34. So we're missing some income there. In addition, pledge income has decreased over the last few months. As of September 30th, for 9 months, we have only $217,000 in pledge income that's come in. We were hoping for about 240 budget-wise, and last year, for the same 9 months, we took in 260,000. So we've got some challenges to make up there as well. You know, you might say, well, the church buildings have been closed, even though we've been open in so many ways, we're closed in other ways. Aren't we saving money because we're closed, so to speak? And the answer is we're really not. Most of our expenses are fixed costs. For example, payroll. We have 4 people on the church's payroll, and their salaries and employee benefits total over $200,000 a year. Those costs have not decreased just because we've been operating in different ways, so to speak. Our other big expenses relate to our properties. We still have to keep the buildings functioning. We have to keep the lawns mowed. You know, those expenses too have not decreased. So I'm hoping that we get about $300,000 in pledge income by the end of this year. Our pledge goal last year was $320,000. The Finance Committee has been working on a budget for next year for a couple months now. And when we started that effort, what we did was we made a list of all of those things that we'd like to spend money on next year, increases here, some new programs there. And we came up with needing $370,000 in pledge income. Obviously, that's not realistic. So what we are looking for in terms of pledge income next year is $325,000, which is a substantial increase over where we will probably come out this year, but a rather minor increase over what our pledge goal last year was. So with that, sort of a snapshot of our financial picture at the moment, I will open the floor to questions. Any questions you have about where we are now or where we're going in terms of the church's finances? Quiet group.
Silence is deafening.
I think.
Jerry, how much?
Go ahead, Gary.
Gary, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, how much do you need me to increase my pledge, Jerry?
Oh, 50% would be great. So for the newcomers, Kathy, I don't think you heard this particular spiel before. Brad, Paul, Jen, any questions from anyone?
I have a curious question. How's that for a start?
Go for it.
When my wife or the kids use Amazon, they use Amazon Smile and donate money to the church. It's not a lot, but is there a sufficient amount, or not sufficient? Is there some revenue coming in from Amazon relative to the sales on Amazon? Are people using that?
There is money that comes in. I would say maybe $20, $30 a month on average comes in for
peanuts.
Amazon Smiles. So it helps. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, people were, I don't know if everyone's aware of that.
We did try in the beginning, Paul. We did try. I'm shocked there's not more, because I spend so much money on Amazon. I thought it was all coming from me. We should. That's a great idea. That's free money and everyone uses Amazon. But we did. Denise had it all over the place in the beginning. Maybe we should put that in our I don't know. What do you think? The bulletin? Do we even have a bulletin? When
Yeah, there's a bulletin
Well,
online every week.
online
There's the
bulletin.
online, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not a lot of it's not a very high percentage that they do, but it's better than nothing. And I think it's too easy when you sign into Amazon. They don't always take you to Smile, even though you might have signed up for St. Andrews. What you have to make sure is that you sign in smile.amazon. Let me kill that. Sorry. And I mean, every penny helps. I mean, if you can get $5 a family a month, that adds up. I don't know how many people use Amazon, but I would think a lot.
Well, I think you're right. And I also figured out a way to have it on my app. There's a tricky, they got it. It's all tricky, but thank you for reminding me about that, Paul.
Okay.
We should definitely get that going again.
Took me a while to get my kids to remember to do it.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, it's worth doing. Small, but worth doing.
Well, I at the vestry meeting, we had a lengthy discussion about how, if you can't bring in more money from the people you have, how do we get more people to join the church? So we're grappling with that, especially on these online times. But I'm hoping that we can, when we do finally get back into the sanctuary, which I believe is the jewel of the property that gets people in, hopefully we'll be home for people, we'll be a church for people that are looking for a church home in these really trying times. So that's what the vestry's trying to figure out, how we can do that, and then get people to pledge. That's the hardest part, but that's one way. But I can't thank you all enough for having the Stewardship Committee. I can't imagine trying to do this in this time when you can't see people face to face. But if you decide to take it this next step by having, giving the vestry, giving people names to call, which I hate doing, but I would do it. I don't know, that might help too. I hated selling Girl Scout cookies. So when I was a little girl, so I am not the salesperson, but I guess when you're passionate about something, you're able to do it.
Kathy will put you down as one of the
callers. I'll have the parties. I'll have the parties at my house.
Well, we do have some folks on the Stewardship Committee who have volunteered to be the callers to get after the lagging pledges. So we do have that. If we need more, we'll probably tap the vestry, including the rector's warden. Something else that kind of a food for thought thing, it had come up in a previous one of these sessions when we talked about the expectation for where we'll be now this year, 2020, and what our outlook is for 2021. There was a very relevant comment that if we don't get this $325,000 pledge, then we'll have to make some economies. And just know that that thought is out there. One of the immediate economies that we're considering is to eliminate pledge envelopes for people who don't want them. And with that in mind, now that I have Kathy on here as our rector's warden and Jerry and Bob as part of the triumvirate, and I'll mention it to Hillary, we'll put a message out next week asking people to respond if they want to retain envelopes. We do know that there are people who prefer to use the envelopes, and that's fine. But in my case, we haven't used an envelope in 2 years. So just something we're going to do.
I think that's brilliant. Jim? And I think, go ahead, Gare.
That's Brad, sorry.
Sorry, Brad.
Yeah, that's okay. I just had a question. So what is the percentage increase from the last year to what you would like to do next year? Sometimes it's easier for people to hear, okay, if you're already giving X amount, can you give some percentage more, and that'll reach us, get us to our goal? Are we talking 10%, 20% if you're already giving? And if everyone did that, the goal would be reached?
I would say 10% is a good number,
Okay.
provided we achieve what I think we're going to achieve this year. Say if we get 300,000 in this year and we increase that 10%, that takes us 330,000, and we should be able to live on that.
Okay, yeah, because I think that might be easier for some people to digest. Okay, can you give 10% more than you gave last year? It's easy for people to calculate, and if everyone does that, then the goal would be reached. Everyone that's giving now, of course, there's some people that can't give 10% more.
Right.
But sometimes that's easier for people to understand.
Sure. And I mean, hopefully we'll get some new people coming in as well. So.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Hey, it's
Sure.
Jen. I have a question. Sorry, I'm here at the drive-through. So we're all talking about 2021, but it sounds like the third quarter of this year, we're having some struggles. Are we reaching out to people to see if they can either fulfill their pledge or give a little more to get us through the end of this year?
It's kind of difficult to do that at the same time we're asking them to pledge for next year. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
we're not really making, many active efforts. And, as a church, it's been our policy to not be too stringent in regard to efforts to collect when people don't make their pledges, just because we are a church. And I think, if we start pressuring people too much, if they don't make their pledges, they're going to be a little more reluctant to pledge than if we just keep it kind of on the light side.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing we'll add to that, Jen, is that we just recently had the mini pledge drive for the streaming and other sanctuary upgrades. So, you can't come to people too often with these things.
And even though July, August, and September were on the light side, October is looking a little brighter. So we'll hope that as the year ends, people increase again. And December is usually a pretty big month for us.
Okay. Thank you.
All hope is not lost.
And I will add that since we're going to put this meeting on the website or Facebook or someplace, the message will get out that, we're running a little behind. And, to Brad's point, if everyone can boost their giving by 10% next year, then, things will work out.
Jim, why don't you mention the ways to put your pledge in?
I will do that, Bob. Thank you. That's usually my closing, but
Well, I thought since we had Jen right on the spot in the caravan, that might be of interest.
yeah, that's a good point. The caravan on Saturday mornings, starting next week, 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, where you drop off your pledge envelope and hand it to the acolyte. Also, you can send them in via U.S. mail, and you can also donate, establish your pledge, I should say, online. John Bacconfuso has put up a link on the website to where you can record your pledge there, and the data goes to Jerry for his compilations. Any questions about that? Oh, one other thing, that if you forget what I said, that same information is at the bottom of your pledge sheet.
Jen, can you give us a visual of the caravan lots? Thank you. Come see us, everyone. Christy, maybe the mime ought to show up next Saturday. We need a mime.
I don't know why you're telling me. I have nothing to do with the mime. The mime runs his own schedule.
The clowns may scare people away.
I just have one more point to make, and that is that pledging is important. Certainly any kind of donation that we receive is important and helpful, but pledging is important from the standpoint of our budgeting process. It's, I'm speaking to the choir here, I'm sure, but just so the information goes out to everyone, please pledge. Don't just send us a check every month or every week or however frequently you do that. That's wonderful. But please give us a pledge so we know how to budget. And that's all I have at this point. Jerry, Paul, comment?
This may sound a little off the wall and a little morbid, and it doesn't bring money in right now. But in our wills, my wife and I, we've designated X dollars to go to the church upon our death. Has that ever been discussed? At least I don't recall it being discussed, and I've been around for a little while. This may not be the forum, but I just threw it out on the table. I said it was a little unusual.
Well, it's not unusual. It was brought up at a previous meeting, and the fact is that the Finance Committee is working to develop a legacy giving program.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not, from what I'm learning, it's not something you can just say, hey, give to St. Andrews. You got to do some groundwork and do some selling, if you will. And but thank you for bringing it up, Paul.
Okay, thanks.
Jerry, Kathy, Bob, would you like to say anything in closing?
Just thank you so much for having a stewardship committee, and we really appreciate it. And Paul, it's interesting. The church that I go down to in North Carolina, they have little as you said, the will. What is that called?
Land giving.
Land giving cards in the pews. I mean, you can't even leave without having that. So I agree with you. I'm going to go down there, and I'm sure there's a way to do it, Jim. And I think that's a really good idea, and we need to start doing that. But thank you, everyone. This is fantastic, and fingers crossed. Let's hope it works.
Thank you, Kathy. And Jerry, Bob?
Nothing more from me.
Gary?
Jim, let me end this recording with Bob and Cindy's testimonial, if that's all right with you, Bob.
Sure.
Christy, could you come down and make sure I do this right, just to end the recording well as we get the shared screen happening here.
And while you're working there, Gary, I just want to say thank you for your contributions today, last night, and all through the stewardship planning process.
Change.
And of course, the same goes for Allison and Christy.
Here they are.
Now see. They should be able to see it.
Can you see them?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear them when I start it.
In considering our stewardship pledge this year, Cindy and I are reminded of how our journey with St. Andrews has deepened our appreciation for the great responsibility we all have as stewards. Stewards of our children, stewards of our community, and stewards of our church.
It's been nearly 28 years since Bob and I joined St. Andrews. With two young boys, we were drawn to the Christian Formation Youth Program. I taught church school as the boys grew up. At the time, there were 100 children enrolled, probably more. As a family, we actively engaged in church services and enjoyed participating in community life events. We ushered together. Henry was a chalice bearer, and Charlie and Bob were both readers. Both boys were confirmed here. St. Andrews provided an experience for our boys to explore their faith and live into their baptismal vows.
As the boys grew older, we learned to be stewards of our church. Cindy served several vestry terms, and I was on the finance committee. Cindy and I helped to organize God's Work Capital campaign, and Charlie volunteered to be the youth chair. More recently, Cindy co-led the search for our rector, and I've joined the vestry.
We must all continue to be good stewards for our St. Andrews Church by being generous with our time, talent, and treasure to carry on God's important work here at St. Andrews this year and in the many years to come.
And that's why we will continue to pledge to St. Andrews, and we hope you're reminded of your journey and join us in pledging this year.
Nice job, Bob.
Excellent. Thank you.
Really.
All right, that's a great way to close. So with that, we'll end the meeting this morning, and thank you all for your participation. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.